Springboks vs All Blacks. Woo! Now in this video I'm going to cover a few areas that I think are crucial that if the All Blacks can get right, they will enable them to be capable of potentially winning the series against the Springboks 2-0. Look, the first talking point here is if the All Blacks are going to beat the Springboks, they're going to need very good speed on attack. And ultimately, that's going to be driven by ruck speed and their ability to be accurate at the breakdown. Look, you just look last year to that test at North Harbour, and ultimately, sort of that first 20, 30 minutes, the All Blacks really took it to the Springboks. They were so accurate at the breakdown and with their ruck speed, and that enabled them to play with a real speed and intensity that the Springboks, it just shocked the Springboks, really. Look, ultimately, that speed and intensity wore down their big boys. Yeah, look, ultimately, that game in North Harbour, the All Blacks were just lightning in that first 20, 30 minutes and accumulated a lot of points then, but ultimately it wore the Springboks down later in the game as well and created opportunities later in the game from there. So, look, they're going to need to play at lightning speed to wear the Springboks down and accumulate some points on attack. Secondly, they're going to have to match the Springboks physically. But an interesting point, and guys, let me know your thoughts on this, but a couple of games that I've seen watching highlights recently, and I looked to the World Cup, and I looked at that first test, Springboks versus Ireland in the pool. And, you know, there's that famous, James Lowe, the Irish winger, he lifted Eben Etzebeth's legs up. And, yeah, it wasn't just that game. I particularly think that semi-final, Springboks England, and, man, the English, they just targeted the box physically. They were just brutal. But both those games, when both those sides matched the Springboks physically, you just sort of got the feeling that the Springboks, like their body language, and they just, it's a bit of a shock. Like they're used to dominating sides physically and bullying them. And when they can't bully the opposition, it sort of takes them back a bit and puts a bit of pressure on them. So the All Blacks will need to match them at least physically and even try and outmatch them physically if they can. But tough ask to match the Springboks physically. But if you can, like I said, it really does put some pressure on them. Another talking point, which I thought was quite interesting, guys, and again, let me know your thoughts on this, but the Springboks haven't held the All Blacks Springboks Cup, obviously the Freedom Cup, since 2009. The All Blacks had quite a good era up until, probably around about 2019 with some real greats, wasn't there? Richie McCaw, Kieran Reid, and they were a good international rugby side. But to be fair, since 2019, the All Blacks they've had a number of challenges, and they haven't been a dominating force like arguably they were with the greats that they had. But particularly 2022, and the All Blacks were really in some troubled ways, weren't they? And before that Springbok series, you would have hands down thought that the Freedom Cup was going to go to the Springboks. But ultimately, they were able to win it in Johannesburg in 2022. But the key takeaway out of that is no matter how good the Springboks are, the All Blacks will rise to the occasion. So how much they're capable of rising to the occasion, I don't know. But if that's something you take away from history, then maybe that's a point from history. Another point, for the All Blacks to beat the Springboks, they're going to need to find space. So particularly, you look at that test in 2022 in Johannesburg, again, when the All Blacks were up against Springboks' heavy favourite. And I remember the particular play, which I thought was awesome. And the ball, a couple of pick and goes, and then the ball went back to David Havili with a pretty good crossfield kick to Adi Sevilla, who went round the side of the Springbok defence. Ultimately, they're going to need to do that either through crossfield kicking or somehow find space to get around the Springbok defence. I don't think it's wise for the All Blacks to look to go up the middle directly against that Springbok defence. They are just too powerful and physical, guys. But again, let me know your thoughts on this how the All Blacks can take it to the Springboks on defence. Look, ultimately, the Springboks are the world champions. They are a phenomenally good side at the moment, and there's even a number of comments that they are even better than what they were last year, which is a very scary thought. I think that the All Blacks do have the players that are capable of winning both games in South Africa, but to do that, they will need to do a couple of things. They'll need to be bold. They'll need to accumulate points. Like, I think they're going to have to score at least 3 or 4 tries plus in each of the games to have any chance of winning. They'll need to be accurate, and they'll need to match them physically and in the air with the bomb squads from the Springboks. I just don't think that if the All Blacks get into a real tight wrestle like the Rugby World Cup, I don't think that they will beat the Springboks. Look, you just saw last year the Springboks won the quarterfinal, semi-final and final by 1 point. They have some serious mental toughness, and I just don't think that the All Blacks will have as much mental toughness as the Springboks. Look, in summary, the All Blacks are capable with the players they have, but they're playing a very, very good Springbok side. They'll have to be decisive, take their chances, and really take it to the Springboks. Guys, let me know your thoughts on how you think the All Blacks can beat the Springboks. Do you think they have any chance at all? Again, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and add any further comments you think about the upcoming series between the All Blacks and Springboks. Guys, if you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and add any further comments on the upcoming series. Cheers.